first lecture was delivered on the 23rd of July 2003 by Professor Seneka Bandaranaike, who I'm very happy to see here this evening, at the ARTI auditorium. Over the years, many architects have graced this occasion and shared their thoughts on the study, practice, and culture of architecture. Today it gives me great pleasure to introduce a distinguished son of Sri Lanka, Cicil Balmond. Born in Sri Lanka and raised in Kandy, where he attended Trinity College and the University of Peradeniya before joining Imperial College in London. Today he is an international renowned designer, structural engineer, author, and deputy chairman of the international multidisciplinary engineering firm Arup, and has been described by the artist Anish Kapoor as the world's greatest engineer. As an engineer, he has been involved in some of the most daring and eye-catching projects of the last several decades, working along with architects such as Philip Johnson, Rem Koolhaas, Alvaro Siza, and Toyo Ito. His Serpentine Gallery Pavilion, done with Ito in 2002, was my own personal introduction to his amazing work. His contributions to some of these projects have been such that, as in the CCTV building in Beijing, he has been treated as equal collaborator and co-creator. His own work with the Advanced Geometry Unit at Arups, which he founded in 2000, includes the highly adventurous zigzagging Pedro and Inez footbridge in Coimbra, Portugal. As a much sought-after teacher for many years, he has, amongst other things, held the Saarinen Professorship at Yale University and is currently the Kenzo Tange Visiting Professor at Harvard. He's also the Paul Philippe Cret Professor of Architecture at the University of Pennsylvania School of Design, once held by the great architect Louis Kahn himself. His many publications include Number 9, which has been, of 1998, which has been translated to 7 languages, and Informal in 2002, which not only won the Bannister Fletcher Prize for the best book in architecture, but has been translated into 4 languages and is standard text for many schools of architecture. It has also won many prizes for the graphic design of the book. In the autumn of 2007, the Louisiana Museum of Modern Art in Denmark dedicated an exhibition to his work titled The Frontiers of Architecture. Another exhibition, the World of Structural Engineers Cecil Balmond, concluded at the Tokyo Opera City Art Gallery in March this year. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Cecil Balmond to deliver the 7th Geoffrey Bawa Memorial Lecture this evening. Thank you, Chana. Good evening, everyone. Well, thank you to the Geoffrey Bawa Trust to invite me to speak today, and it's a great honor to be here. He's a great man doing wonderful things in Sri Lanka, and I'm hard to believe that as a little boy playing down the streets of Boralla, just not far from here, that I would be one day up here myself, talking about my work and my architecture. Never thought it would happen. What I want to talk about today is the making of architectural form and the conceptual models behind the thinking. It's not just something you do by intuition, of course you do, but there are deeper thought processes and deeper assumptions of space and structure that goes into the making of architecture. But before I get there, just as a brief introduction with a few slides of my career in a way encompassed in a minute or two. So when I left Sri Lanka, I went to England and, as Chana said, finished some advanced education and joined the firm Arup. And they had just finished the Sydney Opera House. And what I learned there was that behind the complex form and the many-layered shell arch forms here, that there was a simple thought. If you take a football, oh, do I have a laser pointer, by the way? Sorry. I'll try and, you see these fan shapes are put on the surface of a football, and you can cut them out, and then you get the arch forms. And not only that, because they're on the surface of a football-like shape, they are constant radius. So everything could be prefabricated cheaply. And then you get this marvelous form put together. So underneath the complex
there is a very simple rigor. And usually projects that have that simple rigor behind the complex are quite rich and rewarding to interpret, as against more willful work. I won the competition for the Stuttgart Art Gallery with Jim Sterling, and that was my first encounter really with a great architect and a wonderful three-dimensional thinker. And also was the beginning of my journey into architecture, because through the design of that and winning the competition and designing the project, there were various spaces I got involved with, arguing with Jim on spatial characteristics, not on any structural grounds. And it took some time when he realized that I wasn't arguing to make the structure more pragmatic or doing anything, but I was actually arguing about architectural episode, how structure can punctuate space, create serialities, things like that. So the curved wall was an instance, and of course at that time I was a junior, so I didn't get credited with much of this work, but it was a very important lesson. And particularly those who might have seen this building, there are areas here where columns come in and it looks like it's to support things, but actually they were coming in to break up the space. And once Jim Sterling realized that I was actually arguing on architectural merit, our relationship changed and we bonded much better, and we went on to work with each other for 15 years till he died. Then there were a series of projects. I can't list them all because there were many. This is Temasek in Singapore, the last project he did before he died. In London, the poultry, it's called #1 Poultry. And then my first design project as a designer was when the Portuguese invited me this is Álvaro Siza designed a pavilion here, and I was invited by the Expo people to design a reception area for the Prime Minister and the opening of the Expo. And this is a concrete drape which I punctured at two ends to let the light through, and suddenly the weight of the piece, 2,000 tons of concrete vanish. It's an 80-meter span with about 15 centimeters of concrete. And so it looks paper thin, and it's rather beautiful in just the simplicity of the drape. Also, the cut had a pragmatic need in that Portugal has earthquakes, not strong ones, mild ones, and that is like a necklace. If the building shakes, it jiggles around. So the forces don't go through and crack this very thin shell. A bridge that's just finished in Spain, where I teach. It's unique, I think, in that it has no beams at all. In Portugal, there was a sense of beam with the arch, which disappeared and came back. Here, a ribbon coils itself around. There are 4 ribbons that keep coiling. And this is part of a landscape strategy where I had the land, plants, asphalt, bicycle track, tracked in the landscape, and then it rises through a berm and comes into a tectonic form. So again, it's not a bridge, it's a passage, it's a way of travel. And the architecture is forming itself around you. So these go here, up, along, and down. So there are no side beams. There's no beams holding anything up. It's just a coiling. They call it the DNA bridge, but it's not. It's just 4 separate coils. But from outside, Amtrak insisted it looked like a bridge. And it is, when you look at it this way. But these shadow lines here are because this is going in and out. There is no continuous line along here. And here you send the sense of travel. There's no straight line through it. Comes down, zigzags, moves on, coils itself. And it tightens at midspan to give strength. And this is just 1-2 months ago, an orbiting structure where instead of a tower that just goes up continuously connected, I realized that if I had a line that orbited, provided the orbit connected to itself, then you'd have a form that can rise. And this was with the artist Anish Kapoor for the British Olympics. So 2012, this will be on your TV screens. And the tube is an ellipse. There's a focus here and a focus here. It's like a planetary system. It orbits around. and then I flesh it out with a coil, take out the solid green form, then you get a wire form, then I put in these levels in, and because it's wounding, it's really a winding, you can, the first strand is made up, it's completely different to what you're looking here. So all this work really, to sum up, is a search for a kind of animation in architecture, to get the tectonic form to be released a bit, relate to itself more, start to talk to each other, the components, and in there look for the poetic of the structure that can completely liberate and underpin a sort of architecture, a new sense of architecture being made. And this work will go on, and I see it as sort of writing a set of new codes in architecture. So what's next is more of the same, I guess, but equally, I was talking to some people before this lecture, I'd like to spend more time in Sri Lanka. I've got a small place up near Kalpitiya, and I want to run an architectural school there twice a year with foreign participation and from Sri Lanka. And so maybe some of you there would come there, so look forward to seeing you. And the website, which is not up yet, but it'll be palagama.com, hopefully in a month's time, and we'll release details there. It'll be a fun week where we can explore these contemporary ideas by the Sri Lankan Sea. Thank you very much for listening. You've been very patient.
And before we conclude, I sort of had to do the official thank yous to the various people. First of all, to lots of people who've helped the Trust in organizing the annual Geoffrey Bawa lecture. First of all, Mr. Miles Young, a friend and supporter of the Trust with generous contributions to the Memorial Lecture program over the years and this year as well. The Vijay Group for media sponsorship. David Robson for first having made contact with Cecil and convinced him that it was sort of time to come and speak in his homeland. He wasn't too convinced, I think, until David had a chat with him some time ago. Anjalendran for always being around and making sure that we keep in step with everything that needs to be done. Cecil's team from Arup's, Annette, Ruth, Tony and Thomas, who are wonderful in keeping in touch with Prithiva of our own office to get things organized. Mrs. Eshani Mahesan from the Colombo School of Architecture for providing some students for this evening's program to usher us all around. Leo Burnett for all the advertising and artwork and media coordination. Mr. Dayapalo of Ananda College for preparing the hall. And Roshan Vijayaratna and his team at events production for all the stuff, the technology that's around. And of course, every one of you for being here. And most of all, to Cecil for graciously accepting our invitation in spite of his extremely busy schedules, and even changing it at short notice, I think, to be with us to deliver this 7th Geoffrey Bawa Memorial Lecture. Thank you very much, and please join us for something outside.